Alrighty, Carlos with SOL Design Studio. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So we were just talking about, you did the courthouse in downtown Tampa, the
Yep.
one that has the curved wall. You were explaining the foundation and kind of what you had to do to support that structure.
City of Tampa, the soil around, at least specifically in that area, but I know a lot of areas in Tampa, has really poor upper soils. Any city of any age has remnants of anything that's happened in the past. When we did that building, and I was at a previous firm, I was a lot younger, we did that back in the 90s, early 2000s. We had to go down somewhere between 50 to 60 feet with borings. So even that building looks like it sits on concrete,
Right.
On the city. It's actually sitting on a bunch of borings, really, really deep borings, because of bearing capacity. You can't just sit in the soil because it'll sink. I mean, just over time, it'll start to sink because there's clays, there's
Right.
organics, there's all kinds of things in the soil that aren't stable enough. So for lack of a better term, it's sitting on a bunch of piles. You just don't see them. They're all below grade.
Right. Yeah, and then we were talking about the pendry. They're having to go almost as deep or maybe even deeper than the building is tall right there,
Yeah.
just because of that site.
As you get closer to the river, the bedrock will tend to change. Tampa's actually a challenging city, downtown specifically. So any of our tall buildings you see, a good way to check that out is the pendry. Some of the other ones have been done around there, and even in Waterside, you'll see them. They'll bring these drills that look like 5-story high drills. Chances are those are still going down twice the depth that you're even seeing above ground. They're going down even further.
Holy smokes, that's crazy. Yeah. That's probably why they had a tough time with that site. I know Trump Tower was there before the crash.
Yeah.
I think Riverwalk Tower was the next tower, and now the pendry.
And now the pendry.
And the pendry, it seems like, took a while to kind of get rolling.
It did. It's interesting. I think that site has a lot of history. Like you said, Trump being on that site for a long time, there's been multiple designs that's gone into permitting and then pulled and never moved forward.
Do you think it's because of the nature of the site? You have to go down 400 feet?
Value, yeah. The cost to go vertical is usually compared to what you're going to be able to get out of it.
Yeah.
So they definitely did some analysis on, okay, how high do I have to go to get the value back to what I need to do to build the structure?
Right.
There's performers you're putting together to say, I got to do this much just to get to the ground floor.
Right.
I haven't built anything
Before
yet.
we build a condo.
Before you even build a single room you're selling. That's just to get me to grade. You know, one of the things you always say about architecture is you feel so much better once you're out of the dirt. Getting out of the dirt is one of the most challenging parts of our profession, just getting out of the dirt.
There's some pieces of property that, because I'm looking to get into some more development, new construction myself. I've done a lot of like flipping and value add, stuff like that.
Yeah.
New construction, it's very site intensive from what I've seen.
Oh, yeah.
There's actually a piece of property north of 275 right here in Ybor, and it's 300 grand. It could fit, I think it's entitled for 6 units, but it's sat for months and months and months. I would assume there's something wrong with the soil or I don't know, there's a tree issue.
Either it's going to be swift mud, it's low, which means you have to bring, one of the biggest challenges, if you have bad dirt, you have to scrape it all off and bring new dirt in, and that's incredibly expensive. And that doesn't even mean you have a good foundation yet. That's just bringing on your soil. Then it becomes water, your stormwater control, trees. City has very specific guidelines that we have some older trees, and there's a part of the city ordinances that say you have to maintain grants. You have to be very careful with the grants. So yeah, one tree on a site can cause havoc.
Yeah, a site that's 300,000 that seems like a good deal turns into 500.
Exactly, especially if you have to move a tree. Try spaying and moving a tree that's a grand that's 100 years old. It's not a fun process.
Yeah, good luck saving that thing.
Exactly.
So how did you get started in architecture? We were talking a little bit before. You've been in architecture since the 1990s. Yep. What kind of made you go into this profession?
Probably the classic story as a kid. I love Legos. I was a big Legos fan. My favorite thing was to first build what the manual had, and then I would immediately take that apart because I finished that task, and then I build up my own stuff. And then I started drawing what I wanted to build. I kind of like the instruction book. I've done a lot of work with some grade school kids with Great American Teaching, and one of the things I say is, they said, "What is architecture?" I said, "Who likes Legos?" And they all raise their hand. I love Legos. I said, "Okay, do you just build it or do you use a book?" "No, I like the book." I said, "Well, that's what we do. We have to figure out a way to take 1,000,000 pieces of something and tell someone how to build it." I said, "Imagine I gave you 1,000,000 pieces of something. I said, build something that looks like this. Give it to you, build something that looks like this. You'll build completely different things. But if I give you that book, and this is our goal at the end of the book, you'll build the exact same thing." So our goal is to build a really comprehensive set of drawings that lets the contractor, the owner get exactly what they want in the project. I say that to the kids, like, oh, okay, I know what your job is. Then I actually pull out some books and I show them what the books are. And I love that part. I love figuring out in my head. So before all the 3D stuff, I grew up just kind of making 3D models in my head. I know what I want. And so I'm building it here first, and then I got to make it here. So I started doing that. I went to UF for my undergrad. Fun time. It was boot camp. Started with a class of 300. They only graduated 50.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then to get to upper division, 200 people added, and they got down to 50, and then you had to still make that cut again.
I think I asked, we talked about Alex Rios. You were kind of his mentor. He's a great guy. He was telling me the process in architecture. So but I kind of forgot, it's an undergraduate degree, but then is it like law school where there's a graduate program?
Yep. So a lot of schools, you go 2 years, and then you apply to get into the college. But you're taking all architecture classes. You're taking a few generalists, but here's the problem is if you don't make it, you have a lot of architecture classes. So a lot of people go to building construction, go to other things, landscape, interiors. After 2 years, you go to years 3, 4. Then from there, you get a bachelor's. You are required to have a professional degree, which you either have to go to a 5-year master's program or you have to do 1 to 2 more years.
Whoa.
And a thesis. Now you're at 6 years for your thesis. Well, you're not done. You come out of college, you get a job. You now have to intern for 3 years for a process called the ARE. Within the ARE, you have 3 years worth of things you have to do. So it's not like you can even get it done in 3 years because you have to do all these categories and you have to log your hours into every category. Once you finish 3 years, you then have to take a test. When I took it, it was 9 parts. Each part had about a 50 to 60% pass-fail rate. Once you pass all those exams, you then become a registered architect. So if you do it fast, you're looking at 9 to 10 years. And that's fast.
Whoa.
Fast. To be a licensed architect in the state of Florida.
More than a doctor or a lawyer.
Yes, it is. A lot of people don't realize that, but yeah, it is.
Why would that be? I mean, is it a safety thing? Like,
well, one of the jokes in our profession is that in a good or bad thing, I mean, we can damage more things than a doctor can. A doctor works at one person at a time.
Yeah, you're working on a building.
You're working on a building.
Right.
You know, as we were we go to Tallahassee every year trying to, petition for new laws for safety. The main thing that architects' job is health safety. We have to ensure that public is safe when they walk into a building. When's the last time you walked in a building and before you walk in, you kind of look around and you're like, should I walk in this building? Well, no, you just walk in the building. It's the architect's job to ensure if the building's open and it has a certificate of occupancy, it is safe. There's nothing that's going to happen to you when you're within the building. That's not just it's going to fall. That's safe air, proper lighting. You can see where you're going. There's railings. You won't fall to the side. All the things that employ. And the public is so trained to just assume safety. But that's truly the architect's job to ensure that when you walk into a building, for example, anyone, Alex and myself, anyone that has a license in architecture, if we walk past something that we believe is not to be safe, we are required by our licensure to do something about it. We cannot pass an unsafe condition and not act on it. We could lose our licensure for that. It is required for us to always mandate public safety. More than design, more than anything else is public safety.
Wow.
So just like a doctor, if they see someone, they're
you're talking about projects that you're not even.
It has nothing. I could walk. I've done it before. I've walked in and said, "Can I talk to someone in your maintenance team?" Sure. I'm an architect. I walked past this. Can you talk to someone and tell them to look at this condition? I did it for our building before we even bought this building. I saw there was a condition on the canopy. I said, "Can you please go look at this condition? This condition." I'm a professional architect in the state of Florida. I'm licensed. Here's my license number. Here's my card. They want to call and ask me any questions. I can't do anything because I'm not your architect.
Yeah.
But I want to advise you to talk to someone to check out this condition because I have some concerns. And as a professional, that's the minimum we're required to do.
Wow.
And then say, listen, have your architect call me. I'll tell them what I saw or engineer or whoever, and I'll be happy to fill them in. Then they can check it out, go look at it, and repair the condition. But you are required by our licensure. I
wanted to talk to you about historic buildings. There's been a few buildings in Tampa that have been torn down that I know a lot of people are disappointed over. Mm-hmm. One of them being where One Tampa, that new condominium, is going to be. First Watch was there.
Yes.
Gorgeous old building. I understand.
Yeah. That one did raise some. Yeah.
There's a lot that comes with ownership of a historic building. You know that, of course, and we can talk about that a little later. But why tear down a building like that? Is it a safety issue? Is it a financial? It's not advantageous to put money into a structure like that. Like, why would you tear down a building that's gorgeous and historic like that?
Back to public safety. So in any development project, you're gonna look at your pro forma, what you can do with the project. It's maximum build up, maximum capacity, but then you have to outweigh the public character. I mean, there are laws in place that specifically are designed to say, let's keep some of what we can. But at some point, it's almost unrepairable. I mean, and you have to look at the quality of the building and what you can do with the property.
Right.
So, other bigger cities have been dealing with this for years. New York City, Chicago, these cities are always fighting against, we don't want to lose our character of who we were, but we don't want to lose our potential of what we could be. So there's a fine line of, potential versus kind of your original historic character. And it's a negotiation. The Crest building, downtown Tampa. I had tried to walk through that building with other development teams. That sat there for 20 years. The facade's almost falling off the edge of the building. It's a gorgeous building. Mm-hmm. But the cost to repair it was exorbitant to get it to the point where it's safe to even go in to repair it.
Is it almost like what we talked about earlier in the conversation where it's like, there's foundation issues, tree issues. Yeah. So it's more so it's going to cost a ridiculous amount of money to even get it to a base level.
To get it to the point where you can start
before you do tile,
yes,
et cetera.
Yes. That building, to get it to the point where you had to spend a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it to the point where it's even able to go inside to begin to fix it. You have to stabilize. When you have to stabilize a building before you can even repair a building, that's where it gets really challenging. We had a fire in Ybor City right down here. The space is still the old Palladium, I think it was. It was a dance. The guy was welding a disco ball in a ceiling, and it caught on fire. I was here. I actually drove back like crazy to my building. I'm like, oh God, the fire's right there. Nothing's happened because of the challenges of restoring that building. They built it back, the facade, but all the work you have to do just to stabilize. After stabilizing, then you have to repair. Then you have to renovate. Then you have to bring back up to current code. So bringing these buildings, like what we're in right now, back to current code, sometimes can cost 2 to 3 times the cost of normal construction.
How does Europe figure it out, though?
They have no choice.
Right.
Yeah. They a lot of times will have requirements like in Ybor City, I don't know if you're aware that you can only build to a certain height. And it's determined based on the brewery building, the old category building over there, that you can't build higher than that tower.
Yeah.
So a lot of Europes will go through and they will set height guidelines because they said, I don't care. You can only go to this high. You can only build this kind of thing. You use certain materials are the other things. We go into design districts. Ybor City, the barrio, does an amazing job. Ron Veal and his team do an amazing job of maintaining the character of Ybor.
Yeah.
Of saying 7th Avenue is something sacred to Tampa. We do not want to lose that.
Right.
So you have to go through. When we pick a color on this building, hardware, if I want to pick a hardware, I have to send it to them to have them look at it, to evaluate it based on the guidelines of 7th Avenue. So everything you've seen on the outside of our building has been checked by somebody, to the paint color, to the hardware, to the locks.
That's so important, though.
Everything.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's why I was so excited about Gasworks, what Daryl Shaw is doing, how, he owns a lot of property. He owns,
yes, he does.
From the historic district essentially to downtown Channelside. He's having smaller buildings that match the historic district, and then as you move closer to downtown, you go up, and it's more modernized.
Get more modern. Yep.
I love that. I mean, we have to have that, or we lose our identity, right? Yeah. So this building we're in. Side note, everyone, this is my landlord right here in our studio. This building we were so excited about coming in here because our show is all about history and culture, and Ybor City's the capital of Tampa's history.
I really do believe that. Yeah.
So you've kind of kept some elements like this brick wall, but tell us kind of the story of first of all why you bought the building, how the whole deal worked out, and then the challenges and how you built it out.
Sure. So I started my practice. I started working in Ybor probably 2004. And I joined another architect, and I started the Tampa office. I said, I really like Ybor. I think it's a great district. It's got character. It's got art flair, which is great for architecture. It's walkable. It's got an urban sense with a historic urbanism. So it's not downtown, but it still has an urban quality to it. And plus, taking a client out, taking him to lunch, just there's a wonderful marketing component to it as well. And I said, I'm going to open my first office when I get on Ybor. So funny story is that I in that firm, the first office I ever rented was actually in the building that we bought, which is the front corner building and the building next door. I had 120, well, all of us architects started on our dining room tables or a garage. So I started there, one-person shop. But when we leased our first space, it was over there. And I said, wow, I really enjoyed this because we could walk around lunch, kind of see the district, and love the character. A little rougher back then. We talked about that. A little rougher. It's gotten better and better. It's continuing to get better. But then when I started my own firm, I said, it's got to be Ybor again. I had too great of a time when I opened that other office. I said, it's got to be Ybor. So we started walking around. And I get a call from a friend, a hotel developer, that said, I want to open a showroom in Tampa. Where should I go? He goes, you got to go to Ybor. You got to go to Ybor. And we started looking for, he wanted like a 200 square foot off or showroom or something kind of, just small. And I said, what if we got a building? He goes, what do you mean? I said, what if we got a building? So I started looking for buildings, and there she blows.
There she blows.
There she blows. And I pitched him the idea. I said, I think this district is turning around. I said, I rented an office up there. I think if we buy this building, got it, just bring a sense of modernism to it. Bring this fact that you're in a historic place, but then people still love the modern. So you kind of bring that duality of it. Uh-huh. And I said, I think we can do it. And we had a couple tenants that actually wanted to, after they saw the renderings that we did and they saw the designs, like, we don't want to leave.
So you were renting a space in this building.
So we literally renovated the left side. We put a wall down the middle. And the tenant's like, we don't want to leave. We want to stay. And a couple of them are actually still here. And they moved to one side. And we renovated half. And then they moved to the other side. And we renovated the other half. So it took longer. But we're like, well, we got tenants that want to stay with us. This is great.
Wasn't this listed for sale, right? I saw it listed.
It was.
Maybe not. Maybe I saw it for lease.
We bought it 2000. It was for lease. We actually have been lucky. We've been almost 100% occupied. We've had a couple months that we haven't been 100% occupied. We have almost never had empty space. When we had this building, and we're still time together, this is the first time we've had any vacancies. Wow. We rarely have vacancies.
Only a few years ago, this would be a very ambitious project, like office space in Ybor. I feel like, I don't know, it's not.
We did this first one in 2014. We started.
Oh, wow.
2014 is when we bought the first building. And yeah, there wasn't a lot. So there was the Italian club across the street, right? Had those offices, and they're always available. There's always offices. So we're looking at like, I don't know that there's going to be a lot of, I see vacancies up. And I said, if we do this right, if we make a space that you go into and you want to be in, and there's an event space, I said, I think we'll sell out.
Yeah.
We had the building fully occupied before we finished construction.
Amazing.
It was fully occupied. And I would tell you that building next door, once you get into that lobby, which you've been in that lobby, you go upstairs in the lobby, then you have this great balcony on 7th Avenue.
Right.
We've had amazing Gasparilla parties ever since. We usually hosted the mayor, we've had people throughout the history. That's a great patio. And they love the fact that they have a small office. They can get outside. They have a great common space. They've got a great conference room they can use. And the theory is, and we'll go into why I started the firm that way, but the theory is you don't need a big office especially with the computer now, you don't need as much space. But what you need are different kinds of spaces. You need a space you can go sit outside for a little bit and grab your laptop and do some work. You need a space you can be on the phone with. You can sit on the couch. You can go out to the balcony. You have a conference room. You have a small, desk area where you can sit on the phone and just talk on the phone and close the door. You need different kinds of spaces because people today don't want to just sit at a desk for 9 hours straight. You kind of want to move around a little bit and do different things and change your environment. And we designed that building like that. And like I said, if we've had one office in that building available for a month, maybe two, I would be surprised.
That's amazing.
It's been 100% occupied since 2014.
Why do you think Ybor has become so popular in the last few years? Why do you think that there's this clear growth pattern in a place that really, when I was growing up, you didn't even want to come in this direction?
It was rough.
Yeah.
Back in mid 90s, 7th Avenue was closed and it was just packed with people. Shoulder to shoulder people. And if you went past midnight, motorcycles came in, and not to say they're the bad element, but a grittier element started to pull in around midnight. And we talked about that. Things happen around 7th Avenue, and mostly, honestly, on the outside streets too, is when kind of where the darker alleys are. Ybor brings a unique character. I mean, so many people link it to other Duval. They start to list other historic streets. There's a character to it. There's a certain feeling you get when you walk through Ybor that doesn't exist. There's only a few places in the United States where we as a culture in the United States don't have a lot of history. You go to Philly, you'll start to get it. You go to some of these cities. You come south, it doesn't happen that
Especially
often.
south.
Especially
right.
south. There's not that much. So, there's only a few places where you can get something from the late 1800s to the early 1900s to feel the character that's developed here on 7th Avenue.
100%.
Then when you get it, it's usually sporadic. There's only little pieces of it. So a place that can be brought together with one common element, you can walk half a mile from one side to the other and see from the original Columbia, to spaces that are further down that the smallest, I guess, a piece of Cuba, right? There's a small park at the other side that's technically not even property of the United States.
Yeah.
It's the smallest outside park. So it has an eclectic vibe that's got the richness of history. And again, I would recommend anyone from your audience, take the ghost tour in Ybor City. Take it. You will walk out like with eyes wide open. I've done it, as we talked about. I've even kind of added to their story a little bit with some of the buildings. But the Cuban Club, one of the third most haunted space in the United States.
Yeah.
To have the Italian Club, the fact that Ybor City literally is sitting on a grid of smugglers' tunnels everywhere that we hit. We talked about that. We hit one. So right at that, if you turn to the right a little bit, that door right there. There is a smuggler tunnel. If you take that line, you go straight across the street. It goes right to the back side of the Italian Club.
So when you were doing renovations in this building, you found a smuggler's tunnel.
We hit a smuggler's tunnel.
Did you end up hearing the history about it? Like what year it was created?
So we're in the middle of construction, and we're starting to cut the slab. Okay, so right through that door right there, we're cutting the slab, and the big concrete saw's coming, and by the time it almost finishes the square, the slab drops about 6 inches, and everyone jumps out of the hole because this is a saw cut, 24-inch blade that'll cut your arm off if you're not careful. So this is a big piece of equipment. They jump out of the hole, and I get a phone call. We got some problems. We have a sinkhole. I'm like, oh no, we something's going on. The slab, we cut it. It just fell like 2-3 inches, and I'm like, what the heck happened?
Yeah.
So I go out there, and they start chiseling out, and we find there's dirt, but then we find another slab. We're like, why is there another slab? So it goes slab, dirt, slab. We're like, what's going on? So we keep taking it. We start to hit this old, like coquina concrete, which is the old method of concrete. We had shells in it, and a lot grittier. Yeah, a lot of grittier aggregate. And we're starting to look at it. We're like, what the heck's going on? So we start chipping into it. And at that point, I'm like, we hit something. I think we hit a tunnel because we start to see it's formed. And then we start to think about, like, and I start putting, I'm like, that's the Italian Club. We know the kind of events. We have history of what happens.
Because this has been in the paper a lot. This is big news.
Yeah. So we called out the city. I brought the city's staff out there to look at it. Like, yeah, you hit a tunnel.
Oh my.
So we had to actually scan all the slab for the entire building. We scanned all the floor to make sure so we found out that it's all poured. At some point, they went back and poured the old concrete and filled the entire tunnel with the old concrete. It had to be in the 20s or 30s. I don't think they got caught, and they said, nope, you're not doing it anymore. We know you're sneaking stuff out. But it basically comes up somewhere in the old, either the building right next to the Italian Club where like the Italian restaurant is, or I think it went in the crepe shop. I think there was a stair in the back, the back of the crepe shop. They would get stuff out. They would go underneath our street because if they got raided, then they would get them behind our building.
So this
to
is
sneak
Prohibition
out.
era.
This is Prohibition era stuff. And we believe that it goes out that way because we traced it. It went to our back. We traced it to go to our back alley. So we think somewhere in our building at some time there was a ladder stair or something. They would climb out a ladder. They would come up and they would run either if they got, cops come in or something, or they just moved it at night so you wouldn't see things coming in.
That's hilarious that when the city showed up, they were like, yep, we kind of know what we're looking at here.
You hit a tunnel.
You hit a tunnel.
You hit a tunnel. Yeah.
Amazing.
So, and we believe there's more, but yeah, we know for sure we hit one on that building.
Well, there's been a really crazy, interesting finds all around Tampa, graveyards and tunnels and
old
just
graveyards, yeah.
Even in like Miami, they found that site where they were digging up bodies. I know a related group had a site in Brickell, and they found some. I don't know if it was like an Indian site or something like that, something crazy. But
crazy.
Yeah, whenever you're in an area with history, you're gonna be digging up some stuff.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
There's some interest. That's what I said. If anyone has a chance to do the ghost tour anyway, it's eye opening. Kind of because we have Traffic County. I mean, there's a lot of history of.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we had on Scott Daichi, who wrote Cigar City Mafia. He's just a wealth of knowledge of Ybor mob history. He knows all the details. He's an amazing dude.
That's what's so funny. You said why Ybor City? The amount of stories, the history, the grit, what we've been through, and how we've kind of found our way out, and what it's becoming it's an amazing story.
Do you know? Have you been to Sterling Cigar Lounge right down the street on 7th Avenue?
The new building that just went.
The new building.
Yeah, I actually got a tour of it before it was done with construction. We walked through there. One
of the first new buildings in Ybor in a long, long time.
The one right next to 7-Eleven had been vacant for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
As long as I can remember. And what a great little spot. You went up to the
what a great project.
Yes.
How they built it, fits right in, looks like it was there 100 years ago.
It's a very good job. Good architect. Very good architect.
Yeah. Do you know who did that?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Wilder.
Awesome.
Very good. I know them well. Great group. It takes a challenge. I mean, there's not a lot of architects that like to work in this district because you can't do what you want. You have to take a client's needs and they say, I want this. I want to. Okay, but you have to then take the district's needs and what's good for the district. And you have to find a way to, sell your client that what's good for the district is good for you. Okay, this is a symbiotic relationship. Don't fight it.
Yeah, here it is under construction.
Don't fight it. Be part of it. Make it better. Work with the city's great. If you bring them and be part of the process, we've been in front of the barrio lots of times. If you make them part of your team and you work together, the product will be better. And there are people that come in, developers that just try to, ram it. This is my idea and I'm going to do it this way because I've done it this way 100 times.
Yeah.
It doesn't work here.
Right.
You need to sit down and, look what they did to McDonald's, right? That looks like no McDonald's you'll see anywhere.
That's a good point.
You see the strength of a district when they force, eat like 7-Eleven. You don't see a lot of kind of national brands on 7th. It takes a lot. You've got to be willing to modify who you are to blend your brand with the Ybor brand.
That building was for sale, that 7-Eleven.
Mm-hmm.
4 million, 6 million, something like that.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, Sterling Cigar Lounge. It's what I really enjoy about it is it's a true urban development where it's like a puzzle piece directly in the urban core like that. And I would hope that a lot of other sites around Ybor and downtown Tampa and even in Tampa Heights have more of this development.
Infill's critical.
Infill development, right? We were kind of talking off air about infill a little bit, but what are the challenges with infill? I mean, why can't you in the urban core build something like that? I mean, is it parking requirements? Like, what are kind of the holdups?
Parking is so critical most of the time. Yeah. Most of the time in most developments, parking can determine how big you can make something. I can only have this many spots there, if I can only build this much. Ybor doesn't have that problem. You have your parking waivers or your parking is waived because of the amount of public parking in city lots. So you don't have to concern yourself with parking in Ybor on 7th. I think the further you get off, you have to start to. But when you build on 7th, when we did all of our renovations, didn't have to do a single parking count.
Wow.
Nothing. Because they know that, if you look at the site, where we're at, there's parking behind us, there's public lots.
Oh, there's those city garages.
There's the city garages. One of the goals for Ybor long term, and this is with talking with, some of the people that did Haya, with the Capitano family, that with Shaw, is that really focus on getting those infills filled in the core. Push the parking to the perimeter so that you really can maintain a core. Mm-hmm. There's some news being made as we speak with 717. Right, this is fresh in the news right now, where they're saying you can't do certain things in parking because it's not good for development. We don't want parking surface lots. We want density. We want activities. Put the parking around the fringe. And it makes more sense as a safety factor, too, when you park on the outside and everyone begins to move towards the cores. You look at any of the newer developments, downtown Disney, or now called Disney Springs. Parking's around the perimeter, and then the people move in. It's the safety. You're pulling the cars and the pedestrians out of the same so that cars aren't pulling through downtown Disney. I call it downtown Disney because I'm there, but Disney Springs now.
Yeah.
There's very little conflict between the pedestrian and the vehicular traffic.
But beyond safety, it adds to that experience.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, what would 7th Avenue be if every other area was a parking lot?
It was a parking lot, absolutely.
You mentioned 717. Are they willing to give up parking lots?
That's currently up for review. They're meeting with the city, and I think that was news. I saw this
really
yesterday. There's stories out there. And
surprising. They haven't seemed to be willing to have discussions like that from what I've seen. I don't know.
It's currently going through zoning. There's zoning ordinances that their attorneys, and I'm not privy to speak to that because I'm not on either side. But I mean, that's what a lot of people are saying. What's good for these districts, like you said, is less surface lots, more density. And it doesn't mean you can't build parking. You just maybe have to change the way you do things. Because right now, that lot is between that and the park right there. So there's a lot of traffic there. You push parking one more block over, and it starts to really densify the walkability, like you said, of put the cars in their perimeter, let the people kind of occupy the pedestrian side.
100%. That's also what I think the younger generations, especially mine and younger than me, want. They want that walkable urban environment. Yeah. And that's why Water Street's been so successful. The way they've built that, you have a centralized parking garage, and then you have the other buildings around it. And when you go to Water Street, everyone's walking around and enjoying restaurants. I mean, it's a true city, right? That's the way
feeling urban.
Exactly.
Which is amazing. We have a couple people in our office that have no car.
Amazing.
That take the trolley into work every day.
I love that.
I mean, that's what we're asking for, right? Why do you go to live in New York? I want that environment. I want to put my headphones on and have that 30-minute commute in the subway to get to work. Well, we're starting to get that. It has to improve, and there's already plans on extending, I think another news story is yesterday, they're looking at extending the Riverwalk all the way to Ybor. The Riverwalk is planned to land in Ybor, so that you could walk from here all the way to Armature Works without, on a bike. You could bike comfortably with limited stoplights from here to Armature Works.
Amazing.
So, that's a huge step. The other thing is right now the trolley's a line. It's a line. It's A to B, a couple stops in between. A to D, it's a line. It needs to turn into a loop. And there's been lots of studies done once you can create a loop and not a line, because you have passing problems, right? You see them that one has to stop and this one has to pass. But if you can start to create a loop, you can increase the travel time. And that's, again, urban planning, because now you can run more often because you just next one comes, 5 minutes later, another one's coming. You jump on and you just jump on. With a line, it's different. But at that time, that's all we had access to. Armature Works, there was no reason to go to Tampa Heights. Now there's a reason to go to Tampa Heights, a big one. Right?
Oh, yeah.
It's significant.
And there's so much more being planned, too.
Oh, gosh.
But I think the problem, too, is it's almost like the chicken and the egg where, I guess the city's not willing to spend tax dollars on public transportation like that if you don't have the demand.
Passed, right? Yeah.
But then if you have the demand and there's a crazy amount of traffic and there's a ton of people here, well, shit, now it's too late. Now we got to figure out what to eminent domain, et cetera. So it's kind of a tricky situation.
And we just went through that because, our highway's a mess right now. Right?
Yeah.
And that, I remember 2-3 years ago, you saw signs everywhere that said, don't put money into widening, put money into mass transportation. The state of Florida gave up what? $4 billion? I can't remember the exact, a lot of money for mass transportation. Can you imagine if Miami connected to Tampa, connected to Orlando? That powerhouse of three would have redefined the state.
Completely.
I mean, can you imagine saying, yeah, let's go to South Beach tonight?
Yeah.
Let's go hang out in South Beach. Let's park our car there. 45 minutes, you're walking around South Beach.
Or let's go to Disney World
for the day. Let's go to Disney World for the day.
For the day. Not
and
the
not
night.
Deal with the parking, not deal with I-4. That would have helped I-4. Think of the density it would have pulled off of that road. Now you don't need to widen it. You don't need to spend more money on asphalt. The natural materials it saves by putting that in place.
Safety aspect, get people off the road.
One of the most accident-prone.
I think it's the worst in the country.
I think it might be in the country.
Yeah.
So all the things that it changes, and the argument was, well, it's going to go over budget. I think every mass transportation public project in the history of city development has always gone over budget. It's too difficult to project it. Yes, it will go over budget, and we may have to go and seek some more funds, but the long-term growth potential is measurable. It's immeasurable. I mean, just with the trolley, I remember when the trolley used to have one person. Just here in one person go. You'd be surprised as one person. It's almost full now. I mean, if it's not full, it's half full in the mornings for just commuting.
My grandfather started that program 20 years ago, and
amazing.
Brought that back and brought in HCC to Ybor, and he's put the city parking garages and all that. And at the time, people were like, what the hell are you doing, man? But now it's like, thank God we have it. Can you imagine today trying to put a trolley line in?
No.
I mean, you couldn't do it.
The amount of work. And we're about to go through it again.
Right.
Because when they can, and they will, they need to connect Tampa Heights.
I saw the plans where it would go up Franklin.
Yep.
It was either up Franklin or up Tampa Street to Armature. And then I saw another like future potential phase where you would go across Palm to Ybor. Now imagine that.
The Palm one's going to be, for you to get on a loop and just literally hit anything. And then, or you could walk down the Riverwalk, or the options. And that's the urban conditions. You have options to get from point A to point B, and lots of things to happen in between, by the way. You may jump off to hit a bar for a little bit, hit a restaurant, and then you're going to end up the night in Armature, but you're going to stop somewhere in between.
You know what factor it also alleviates too is the affordable housing crisis. People talk about affordable housing. Well, if a developer can come in and build a project that doesn't include a lot of those amenities and doesn't include a 6-story parking garage, the developer can probably pass some savings along and have some less expensive units.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge asset to a city to have public transportation. Right. If I can walk out of my apartment and walk to groceries and walk to amenities.
It extends the need for vehicles.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you cut out a car, you're cutting out a lot of cost to you that you can then put into other things. Like you said, rent. Absolutely. Affordable housing is absolutely one of the biggest problems we're having. I think Tampa just got nominated again for, if it's not number 1 or number 2, it is as high as our pricing costs are. It's even worse in other places. But
yeah, it's really bad. It's really bad. And I think a part of it is probably the lack of development. I think people think it's being overdeveloped, but look at some of the urban cores like Minneapolis and other cities that have abolished parking minimums and actually let developers come in and build projects like the Sterling Cigar Lounge.
Right.
And then the risk is on the developer to say, hey, look, I think my patrons or my tenants will not use a car.
Right.
You know, they won't need that service. They won't need the parking. Let me build what I can build and take that risk.
And you nailed it on the chicken and the egg scenario, right?
Yeah.
Do you build the housing without infrastructure for public transit, or do you need to build a public transit to then incentivize developers to say, okay, there is enough to get in between. I feel comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, Gasworks is going to go through that right now. There's a decent amount of parking there, but he's going to have to still provide some. You know, if the stadium ever gets built in Ybor City.
Yeah, we're all waiting on that.
We're hoping on that. Fingers crossed here. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
That's going to change the dynamics of Ybor completely. I mean, but you say that. Look at what downtown has done with the Bolts home. I mean, that doesn't affect. Is it hard to drive when there's a game? Yeah, and that's okay because there's a game. You know, it's challenging, and there's still a lot of surface lots, but how that changed the dynamics of downtown in terms of the walkability and people actually entertaining themselves and going to games, it's amazing. I mean,
it really is amazing. I mean, anyone that's been in Tampa for more than even 5 years, it's crazy how fast we've accelerated. But look at what that area, I mean, especially Channelside Water Street, like that whole corridor right there is really becoming an urban neighborhood, a real urban neighborhood. I mean, we've got a Publix, we've got a CVS and Starbucks. We have the amenities people need like they would in a regular city.
You don't need to leave. You could walk anywhere you need to.
You really
go to work and you don't have to leave that district. And that's the key.
Yeah.
All of us that have studied, so, you know, part of my background is in urban planning from USF, master planning. And there's these ratios you do where you have to draw circles around different neighborhoods and see, are all the essential things you need within certain circles. And if you can successfully drop these circles in different areas and you can check the distance of those, you can pretty much determine if your project's going to be successful. Because if you don't have certain things within those areas, you have to get into a car, you become problematic. Then you have to provide parking place for people. Then it becomes a cost factor. Well, I'm not just paying for the car and the insurance. I got to pay $300 a month for parking? Whew. That's where it starts to get difficult. So that's where it's, you know, it's important to kind of.
Is that me?
I was going to say that might be me. It's right behind the computer right there.
Is that you? Producer with his freaking phone on. What were we talking about? Urban planning. Yeah, urban development. Yeah, I just think that Tampa, the way the urban core is set up, really could be a walkable city. I mean, it could be like a little Boston.
It's there. It's coming. And I think, to your point, as successful as that has been, developers work in tiers. You have the big developers that once the big projects come, the second tier, the middle guys come and say, you know what, that's successful. I'm gonna go buy there. And then it drives a third tier. So you need all 3 tiers, but you need the few to show that you can be successful.
Yeah.
Vinnick has done that. That group has done that. And to the point where they're already moving to phase 2. Then you saw when they bought the flower plant, right? I mean, I can only ever remember that always being there and seeing that. But that was a deterrent. That was a block in the city. If you look at a map and you see what that did to the city, like that's crippling the city. It was a need at one time. It was perfect. Like there was nothing out there. Go ahead. Yeah. Put a train track through there and drop off your flour and keep going. Now it was a literal roadblock. Mm-hmm. They had to run roads around it, stoplights. When it begins to interconnect with the meridian, you can now link on a quick run. You can get to Brandon. You can jump to Orlando. All the interconnections now, it's all going to start to weave together.
Yeah, that's an important puzzle piece. It really blocks downtown from Channel Side.
Absolutely.
That's a problem.
It's a problem. And now the other thing about Tampa is working on becoming one of the first well-rated cities. Are you familiar with the well rating?
Some sort of energy certification?
It's energy, but it's also health. So it's about using energy wisely. It's about health, promoting. When you develop a project with well, you don't just think about being making money, being a good building, looking attractive, but it's also about, are you healthy? Are you providing places to park a bike? Are you providing places to lounge with green areas? Are you providing all these different services? And it's much more health rated. Tampa's working on being one of the first well-rated cities in the, I would say nation. It might be in the world.
Wow.
Right. That's all those bike lanes we put in.
Yeah.
Providing safe bike lanes. And Tampa's not there yet with bikes. I mean, we still have, if you look at some statistics, we're doing better, but we're still not there enough to provide safe bike paths. The one that comes right up and connects Ybor now, there's a bike path that goes right by the train tracks.
Museo Parkway.
Museo Parkway and Pleasant. So, these are the things that start to promote the fact, I can live in downtown and I can buy a bike and I'll work just fine. So now it's on us. Like we've talked about finding a place to put bikes. If people start to, what do we do as a building owner here in Ybor? Well, people want to use bikes. Well, we're built property line to property line. Like we have no space. When you buy these properties, if you go outside, the minute you step past that threshold, you're on City Tampa property. So how do we start to give, our people, our workers, our team ways to incentivize them? Like, you live in Seminole Heights. There's not a safe, now there's a safe way. You could ride your bike to work, not pay for parking, use less gas and give them options, because the minute it becomes reasonably financially possible, people will make that decision like, okay,
right.
It's a 50-50. If it's someone make the jump because like, I want to do the right thing and I don't care if it takes me an hour to get to work. I'll make that time. But when it becomes almost the point where, that's really feasible, that's when we start to make better decisions when it comes to sustainability.
We have such a car culture here in America. I think
we do.
On one hand, it's hard for people to get rid of that car, but I also think that the new generation, like I said, we want that lifestyle. We want the urban lifestyle.
Yeah, see, I have kids and some of them want their car immediately. Some are like, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm good. Uber.
Cars are expensive.
They are. They're very expensive.
Gas, insurance, the car itself, payment, et cetera.
Exactly.
And then where do you park it?
That's as we develop this neighborhood where it's like, even if I wanted a car, I don't know if I can afford to put it, those three aspects of it. That will then force us to spend more money on mass transportation, which will then, the borders of your city, as you build better and better routes, it pushes out further and further, and you can develop further. So it is on a curve that as you build some, it does tend to go faster and faster because the need is arrived.
Right. What do you think about eliminating parking minimums? To me, I truly can't see a downside. It just seems like, if people want to make a lifestyle choice, we're not out in Brandon. I mean, this is the urban core.
Right. You can do it in certain areas, but you can't do it everywhere because otherwise you do prevent the people that want to live in Brandon to drive to work.
Correct.
You have to meet minimums, and there are more efficient ways to park. I mean, we're finding that there's robotic parking that can stack your cars in tighter ways. New York is, again, some of those Chicago, New York, some of those other cities, Los Angeles, are finding ways to fit cars in better. If you've seen them, if you've done it, where you pull your car into a gate, you give them the keys and you go, and it literally picks it up and files it. We have a client that like a filing mechanism, and then you hit a button, it pulls it up, drops it in an elevator, and you pick it and go. Well, it's instead of sitting in a space that standard parking space is 10 foot by 20 foot by 7 foot, 8 foot, you can fit two cars in that same spot. Well, if you do that across the world and take the same space and fit two cars in, or even smaller, thinner, because here's the other thing. These robots let you pick up the car. You don't have to open the doors. Opening the door is about 2.5 feet. Well, the robot picks up the cart, literally picks it up and moves it. So you can stack them within inches of each other.
Yeah.
So all that space times a parking lot, you might be able to fit in, 10, 20, 30 more cars on the same line, only because there's no need to open the door because no one's getting in there to pull the car up. It picks it up and moves it itself like a jukebox.
Yeah, technology can really make an urban walkable environment shine, almost like how Water Street did the centralized cooling unit. I mean, they don't have air conditioners in those buildings. They have them in a separate building that houses cooling towers or whatever.
There's a couple. So yes, that's a great way to do it because you're centralizing your system, you're maximizing, plus you can do off-peak hour ice production. So that's also an ice farm if you look on the backside. So I actually did one for the courthouse. If you know the bridge that goes around the course and you walk down there, there's to the right, there's what's called a chiller plant. So the chiller plant that I did, I think was 3,000 tons of, a normal ton is like 5-ton unit. Well, we did 3,000 tons with the upgrade with another 3,000 tons.
Whoa.
But what they do is they actually have what's called an ice farm. And you make ice on non-peak hours. So there's different times of day the power can change the cost. So if you use power between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., it's cheaper than using it between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m., which is a lot of power is being used. So they'll use and make ice or chilled water on off-peak times, then store it. Then they use it when it's most expensive to make power.
Fantastic.
Right. So they're doing that right there. They're using it and harvesting it at the most efficient time. It's a great idea. I mean,
it is. And you free up the rooftop.
You free up the rooftop. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's been done. You have to look ahead and say, yes, there's an upfront cost, but the long-term savings are there. So we're going to invest because you're burying 24-inch pipes under all the streets.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's money.
You kind of have to have a Water Street size development for that to even work.
You can't do it otherwise. When we did that for the Hillsborough County on a previous firm of mine, we connected the Hillsborough County building, I call it the purple kind of wedge-shaped building. That connects to our ice farm, as did the new courthouse and a couple of the buildings, and we ended up burying lines, and it's a process. You're working, you close one street, and you bury some pipe, and then you close another street, and you bury another pipe, and we connected about 3 buildings and took all of their HVAC systems and put them on chilled water loop. The other thing is with chilled water loops, you can actually, the hot water that comes back, you can actually recycle and pull the heat off and use that as well. So there's lots of savings, right? So it becomes, I got to think they've saved millions of dollars on energy by now. So, but you're also dropping, $10, $20, $30 million on upfront costs. So you're managing upfront costs for long-term savings. Yeah. So you have to be kind of long-sighted, far-sighted. You're looking at the end goal. Like, yes, this is tough now, but man, when we pay in 10 years, we pay for this. Think of the savings. It's almost free power as you're moving forward. So
and usually how those projects work is they're looking for a buyer on the back end, right? Those larger buildings. You build a big
project. You can connect to and you can almost sell that services. So yeah.
It's interesting to me that Tampa has a Water Street size development, but also has the gas works and then the Ybor Harbor.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of shit going on.
There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's like you said, varying size. The plan for that kind of marina district, right there at the end of connecting, which will effectively connect Ybor. Gasworks is doing it too, but they'll also connect Ybor to Channelside, right along the underpass, and that's an interesting district.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and then when it's all done, what are we looking at? I always try to imagine, what if all this does get built? I mean, it seems like the funding is there, the ambition is there, the ownership of the land is there. This isn't really pie in the sky idea.
No, it's not.
SPP owns that property down in Water Street.
Yep.
Shaw owns
the
property.
Other one.
It's like
you're connecting the two entities, kind of merging right at the overpass.
It's incredible.
Right? It's an interesting. I think with the excitement we've seen the last 5 years, the next 5 will be as exciting, if not more, because it's only speeding up. It's not getting slower; it's speeding up.
It seems like nationally, though, if you watch the news, it is slowing down. Do you think Tampa will be affected in a negative way?
I get this question a lot from developers. So architecture is one of those unique professions that can actually help, I won't say dictate, but it can give you a reading on what's happening, because what we do takes so much time. So a lot of us report projects. Either it's new projects starting or what's called proposals. When a developer comes to us that they're thinking of doing something, they come to us very early in the process. They come to us 12 months to 2 years before anything's being done. So as we chart when we're getting proposals out, when we're getting requests for new proposals, if we're getting a lot of requests, that means that there's interest to spend money. And it's not interest to spend money today. It's interest to spend money 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 10 years from now. So we can be one of those economic indicators of spending over the next 2 years. And we put out, the AIA puts out these journals that talk about how many proposals are requested by firms all over the country, and they'll do it by areas and regions. So we report to those type of agencies, and every month it's either, are you doing similar proposals, are you doing more, are you doing less? I can only speak for ourselves that I haven't slowed down. If not, I'm speeding up.
Wow.
And my opinion, non-officially speaking, is Tampa, Florida's in one bubble. Mm-hmm. Then Tampa's in another bubble within the bubble of Florida, because we still see the statistics of people moving down here in astronomical rates. We have clients that are bringing corporate, their companies and moving them into Tampa. We're seeing, Ybor City's benefiting from this, but so is Tampa. So is we have Midtown, and USF just yesterday announced their plan for another Midtown development right there in the university. Well, Uptown. So all these districts, I mean, when you see Midtown be successful, Uptown is only moving forward because of the success of Midtown. Midtown is seeing its success because of the development that West Shore did and that Tampa Heights did with the Armature development, which is a mini Midtown because they have office complexes, they have dining facilities. So as they start to see the successes, like, okay, we could do one here. And you start to see that pod, and then they start to interconnect the way Tampa Heights did to Tampa. Then you'll see Gasworks connect to Channelside, and that will become a big grid. Now it's not these districts anymore. They become like, I'm not going to say we're New York. Can't say what it is.
Right.
You have the Bronx, you have the borough, you have all these boroughs. Well, we're starting to have boroughs here where you could go into one borough and not leave that borough and have everything you need, or you could go to some other part of the borough to do something different. Tampa's never had that. We just had, go downtown, go to Ybor. But we legitimately are having boroughs, and then they're now becoming interconnected, and all the gaps are being filled. So that's what's exciting to see is I in 10 years from now, I mean, I can't even imagine. That's one of the ways I talk to my partners, like, we get offers on our buildings all the time, like, no, we're not selling.
Yeah. Do you do some investing as well? I mean, obviously, this building is probably looked at as an investment. I know it's your.
This building is absolutely an investment.
Yeah.
It was a interesting one, like we talked about back in 2014. It's like, what's Ybor gonna be? And now it's like, do you want to sell it? No, we're good.
Different times back then.
Different times, but absolutely. I mean, you're going through pictures of what it started with, now what it looked like before. It's startling, but
yeah. So this is the entrance right here. What's what was it set up before? It almost looks like law.
It was law offices. There was two groups of law offices before, and they were just your standard, building, and the goal was to turn into something similar to next door, where it's a lot more light. There was interest. We had this really awkward, interesting, unusual, entrance that I think it was on the market for a while, by the way. When you asked about the market, this building was on the market for a long time.
Yeah.
And no one wanted to touch it. And so I looked at it, I said, well, we as the building next door have a unique opportunity. And we know about this because we're here in the building, but we have a unique opportunity. We own the building next door, which has a very different entry sequence. They don't have a balcony here. Why would you want to be in Ybor and not have a balcony to enjoy gas?
You probably couldn't build one.
You can't. I tried. I talked to them. There's no historic evidence of a balcony here. I met with the city to see, can I build a balcony? First thing my partner says, can we build a balcony? Let's build a balcony. I said, don't know if we can. No, you can't, because it wasn't historically present on this building, so you can't put it on. The answer was just no. By the way, just next time you look at our buildings, you look downstairs, our balcony next door at 1726 actually sits on city property. I had to file 7 different easements to the city, and I have to carry a separate insurance policy because anything that happens on that building is on city property, even though it's on our property. So we have an easement for every one of those foundations. I have an easement for the area above, and I have to carry a special insurance policy just for the city because our building sits on their property. Funny thing also, no one ever pulled a permit for those back in 1924. So I had to reverse engineer a permit for something that was never permitted. Then I had to file easements. just to repair that, to put the canopy on there.
Have you heard Daryl Shaw's story about his first real estate development
No.
he did in Ybor City?
No, which one?
He bought an old building in Ybor.
Okay.
It had a balcony. I don't know what his plans were, rental unit, something like that.
Yeah.
He went away and came back, and the whole facade and balcony ripped off and was sitting in 7th Avenue. Oh, that was his first experience in real estate development.
Welcome to Ybor. Yeah.
But like you're saying, it's like, that shit's possible. So, you had to make sure, that thing was structurally sound and
every day we're making sure it's structurally sound. Yeah. It's, you asked the question before, why the love of historic buildings, the love of the culture, the love of the history. It's such an amazing thing to restore something that had been around, to know that you've also given it life for the next 100 years. But it is a daily, it's a monthly journey. Upstairs you're showing our studio here, that those beams and those we found so many artifacts, things that were done wrong.
Did you really?
Oh, every time we pulled up part of the ceiling thinking, oh yeah, it's definitely the joists are going this way. Like, oh no, they changed their mind. They went this way. We go into, this is right next door. They'll do it the same way they did. Nope. Change it
Do you
again.
know what this building was originally?
It was, let's see, it was offices above. There was a market below. A lot of these were markets below, or they sold something below and the offices were above, or they lived above. Katz next door, which is our building next door, was a grocery store, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And they lived above, or they had offices and lived above. A lot of these were like that, where you'd own the store downstairs and you lived upstairs.
For people listening, we're right above Coyote Ugly on 7th Avenue. So this is on the bottom, kind of currently what the office looks like.
This
and on
looks
the
like
top
now
is mid-construction.
And that's what I was telling you, that some of the artifacts that they found, like on that pieces of wood, those are original. You see, like the old.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
those large.
Those are original. The ones on the wall. On the wall. Those were. You actually see the old historic nails. The ones that are almost like they're cut.
Right.
And they're like they're all over. You can kind of see that we one had to make sure they're structurally feasible, but and that wood doesn't happen everywhere. It only happens in certain places. That's every time you opened up another room thinking this is gonna be the same as no. It was framed differently. It's almost like they just changed their minds. Like, let's just run the beams that way this time instead of going that way.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it was
it's like opening up a treasure chest. Really, I mean,
drove the contractor nuts every time. He's like, okay, you're gonna come back to the site. I got to show you something else. I'm like, okay, coming up.
I'm sure.
So,
well, you guys have done an amazing job.
Thank you.
So this was a historic renovation project, and you do new construction as well.
Yeah.
What are some exciting new projects you're working on?
So I know that you know about the Motor Enclave. You've had Brad on. We're doing a bunch of stuff over there. We were just on site actually 2 days ago.
Can you pull up? I think they actually just had the grand opening of the event center.
Yes, there was a mural unveiling. We were there actually, and it was so exciting. We have a bunch of tenants that we're doing work for. They're all so excited to get in there. The track looks amazing.
What a project that was.
Yeah. Getting that going.
Talk to him about the county and his relationship with them. Oh my gosh. I know he had some trouble.
Yeah, we were with him, meeting with the fire marshals. We were at that meeting. They were the end result is I think there's going to be a great collaboration between. I think they can see the value of it, what it brings to. Again, it's another thing that Tampa has. This is not happening many places around the United States. There's unique places that can. Just seeing the scale,
right,
and what it's going to do to the area. And by the way, so many, you look at reasons that people want to bring corporations into Tampa. I think every person that owns one of those places there is probably a CEO or a CFO of a company. So if I'm a company, I'm looking at moving, let's just say I'm in Detroit, not to trash any one place, or whatever, I'm in Columbus. Why would I want to move the company to Tampa? Well, geez, look at it's got this Motor Enclave, it's got this downtown, it's got a hockey team, it's got a baseball team. I mean, you look for reasons that you're moving your businesses. So
amazing airport, Florida tax advantages,
top-rated airport in the country.
The first picture, Tyler, is the new event center.
Yep, there it is right there. Yep.
Look at that building. Now, how many square feet is this thing? 37,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big building. It's beautiful inside. It's got a lot of open spaces. I walked through there. I think it was yesterday or the day before. They're getting close to finishing off the interior build out. It's still months away, but it's doing really well.
What a cool spot too, right on I-75.
Yeah.
Everyone
can see it.
100,000 cars a day, right? Oh, there it is. 142,000 vehicles a day past that.
Yeah. It's a great project. So we've been working on that for a while. That's a new one that Brad has been great to work with. We're working with he actually the shell architect is the architect he worked with back in Detroit. So we were one of the first actually architecture firms to work with that company. We kind of helped them through some of the local, and we've been one of kind of assisting Brad with the coordination of all the permitting and getting the fire marshals. Because the unusual thing about this is one of those types of spaces that doesn't fully fit into the code. It's different. Oh. It's not a parking garage, but you park your cars there. It's not a house. You can't live there.
And it's never been done before here.
Yeah, no, it's unique to Florida. And just for the record, Florida has one of the toughest codes in the nation. I mean, we just had a very difficult code. We kind of have to. We have a unique environment where, you said I'm the second architect with Alex, but, in Florida versus everywhere else, most everywhere else you deal with gravity loads. You have to deal with, gravity is pulling the building down. You have to push back up to oppose gravity. Not in Florida. In Florida, you have to push down because your building wants to fly away. So it's the exact opposite. You're actually dealing with completely different loads. We have to work on our buildings flying up into the sky, obviously, as we're doing all these hurricanes. So certain things, we see all these wonderful products as we're like, oh, look what they did here in California. Well, we can't do it here. Well, it just doesn't work. We have such a different environment. So when you're looking at these unique building types that have done the places and you have to then apply it to code, it gets that much more difficult. And we spent a lot of time, and they were great with meeting with them. We're explaining this is a unique condition. It's been done, like here in Detroit, because Brad had done it successfully in another place. Yeah. And it's kind of like, well, you're a garage. Well, no, we're not a garage, but you're not a residence either. Nope, we're not a house. You can't sleep there, but you can stay there. You can run your car there. It's used for offices, but it's an office space. Right now it's zoned as office and storage.
For such an ambitious project and someone that wants to invest this kind of money into something really special.
Yep.
Clearly it's been successful, right? A lot of people love it. And how amazing that Tampa's got it, right? Not Miami, not anywhere else.
Miami, not, yeah.
So, why wouldn't the county come at it with a perspective of maybe trying to fit it into a mold more easily?
It's not the county as much as it's the challenge is
the state.
It's a code issue of they're interpreting code in a certain way. The buy-in from a lot of people have been really helpful. Brad would not have gotten this far to where we were without really good support from the government officials. But it also, they're tasked with public safety, and you have to work within the book you're given. You still have laws and requirements in code. So you can't just say, it doesn't apply.
Right.
You have to find to say, okay, it's in a gray area. It's not this and it's not this. Well, what is it? Good question. So then you have meetings and meetings to say, okay, it's not that, but how do we protect people? Because the ultimate end result is it a safe space? Can people use this? And one of the biggest concerns there was, just having cars on in a space and, carbon monoxide. You got to be careful. So everyone has been working, Brad included, I want to make these spaces successful. I want to make these spaces safe, public safety. So that's been the point. Even the fire marshal, when we sat there and met with him, is like, we got to make sure that when they're using the space, that everyone is safe. There's no concern for public safety. So that's more the reason.
Right.
We've gotten through all the major hurdles, and we're all.
Hey, it got built. Right?
It got built.
It got built.
All the spaces are getting permitted. We just got every day, I think we're getting a couple more approvals from permitting. So it's moving forward. We're excited about it.
He was fascinating. I asked him, why Tampa? And he kind of gave a funny answer where he said he put in an algorithm, a computer algorithm, certain metrics. And Tampa came up as number one. And the metrics were, certain car collectors, certain net worth, proximity to certain amenities. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I said, well, why wouldn't this be better in LA or Miami? Right. And he's like, actually, would be horrible in Miami. A lot of those guys are not enthusiasts. They rent a Lamborghini for a day, or they have one and then they're parked in their garage, and they would never take it to a track.
Right.
Tampa had, what did Brad say about, doesn't Tampa have like the largest collector of Shelby Cobras, one of the number one Ferrari guys? Like Tampa Bay is low key, like this car enthusiast capital.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Isn't that amazing? Tampa came up as number one. I'm just glad the project got done. I think it's so cool. I love it so much.
It's it's funny because you put in that algorithm we talked about. Well, this project is becoming one of those metrics that adds into that logarithm, because it's an amenity large enough to say that people will begin to look at this area different. It's always been like, do you have an NFL team? Okay, then you're a big city.
Right.
Well, do you have a baseball team? You're a big city. Well, now it's looking at other things. Do you have one of these type of tools? Oh, it may not be an A category, but it's definitely that next tier, right? Wow, look at what it's got. It's got a great airport, but it also has a motor enclave. Wow, I love cars. I can go hang with other cars. Wow, that's a big deal. I can also go to a hockey game. I can go to a football game. I can hang out in an urban environment where I don't have to own a car. I can go to a 5-star hotel like the Edition because it has one now. I've got 3 Michelin star rated restaurants in a close vicinity. So all these little check boxes as you watch the trajectory, and you talk about bubbles, when you start to hit enough of those little algorithmic check boxes, it's like, okay, well, why would development stuff? Because
it becomes undeniable.
It becomes undeniable,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not going to say that because, to your point, costs of construction have not stopped. They haven't. Working with some development teams that stopped during COVID. And one of our clients has said, we probably lost $50 to $100 million because we stopped during COVID. If we had kept going through it, we would have made $100 million right now. But we stopped, and after we stopped, everything got more expensive. So not only do we not make the $100 million, the $400 million that we were going to spend is now $500 million. So you'd start to take that delta. It's probably $200 million hit. You didn't make it, and you are paying more for it.
Right.
So when you look at that, going through COVID may have only increased the size of Tampa and Florida's bubble because that level of developer that's already saying, I'm already spending $1 billion.
Yeah.
Well, next time I see any kind of little blip, this is what I've told people. I said, anytime I see another blip, that large developer is going to say, wow, I just saved $30 per square foot of build more. The big guys are using any downturn to buy up more property and to use that as I'm saving some money, so I'm going to build even more. So anything on that downturn that happens will just turn right back up again. Now, I'm not saying that's because at some point you have to, when the last market fell, right, 2009 to 2011, right on there was enough little pegs that it just kept pulling the pegs and it just kept falling, right? It's not, at least I don't see it now, and I'm not an economist anyway, so I can't say that I'm an economist, but seeing the trajectory that everything's going with prices and prices are skyrocketing, but there are some things that are normalizing. I mean, there are.
Mayor Castor just proposed a 16% tax increase. The council denied it.
They did.
And I saw a little snippet. Councilman Maniscalco put it in a really interesting way where he said, the last time we denied an increase like this was during the recession. And the reason we did so was because we were laying off, or no, I'm sorry. The last time they approved, hold on, we could probably pull it up. But basically what he was saying was back then there was a justification to cut cost because we had to lay people off.
Correct.
People were losing businesses, losing jobs. We're not seeing that right now. We're seeing an increase in insurance, property value, all these metrics are going up, and now you want to add a property tax increase. He's like, this is a recipe for disaster. It got denied. It seems like there's so many metrics pointing in a positive direction, and there's also another factor too. Nationally, you have these huge metropolitan cities that are going in the negative. They're not having a new motor enclave. They're actually having worse metrics pop up, pushing people out. That's another factor too. I think you might be right about this double bubble. Maybe a bubble's the wrong word. Maybe it's an insulator, right? Maybe we are double insulated by Florida.
By Florida
but
first.
You might even see Miami go down before we do.
I think you will.
Yeah.
Miami is generated by a lot of out of the country money as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money that flows through there for the development that is coming from outside this country. Foreign investors. There's a lot of it. And they're starting to come into Tampa. I mean, we have some projects with foreign developers that are coming through in early stages that are working, doing a lot of work, many hundreds of millions of dollars on development. So, that's a different kind of bubble.
Yeah.
And Miami went crazy for a while, but COVID shut it down pretty hard, but it's back up and running crazy.
It's going
crazy.
Yeah.
So, but I would agree with you. I think that because it is so dependent on a certain type of investor and development, it could see a slow. I won't say a
slowdown.
stop, a slowdown before Tampa would.
Yeah.
Tampa's a little more diversified, I think, in its developer type. You're just like any business, like we are. We do a lot of hospitality, but we don't want to be just hospitality. Every business wants to diversify their ability a little bit, and I would say Miami's not as diversified. And I could probably have someone come in Miami and say, "No, we're very diversified." Tampa seems to have different kinds of developers doing different kinds of work. So if one sector slows, another one may pick up that difference. In our profession with architecture, it's very up and down in terms of cyclic. And the key to keep your business the way we've always done it is you try to pick up different types of work that when hospitality goes down, well, maybe hospital work goes up or residential work goes up. So you try to find and have enough work in different types of sectors so that when one dips, you're riding the wave on another one that compensates for the dip in the other. So you want to kind of stay right here, right? You want to be just so that as one goes down, another one goes up, and you just keep kind of riding that middle wave. It feels like Tampa as a city has a little bit more diversification than some of the other ones do, which is interesting because I think you're right. It could be very well insulated.
I think one thing we are missing is a large-scale industry. Austin, they have a huge Tesla plant, and there's Silicon Valley, and LA has Hollywood.
Yeah.
It seems like Tampa needs a very stable industry to prop up some serious high-paying jobs.
Yeah.
But we do have the largest port in Florida by tonnage.
Yes.
We're right next to the beach. I think like you said, I think that diversification.
It doesn't have that one big thing, right? It really doesn't.
Yeah.
You're right. I think you nailed it. But it has lots of, let's say, middle tier things that if one big thing, I mean, look what's going to happen with the auto industry right now, right? I mean,
well, maybe that's a blessing. Right.
Maybe, but when you're so focused on that one client or that one atmosphere, when something happens that you're going to feel it. If one of our sectors goes down, like Jabil is a huge corporation. I mean, I sat on a talk where the CEO was talking about how they've grown. I mean, that was a little St. Pete company, a technology company. It's international now. I mean, I had no idea it had grown to the level that they had. If you look up that company, and that's a St. Pete company, that's a Tampa Bay company. That's now an international technology company. I think they have, gosh, if you look that up, they may have companies or offices around maybe 20, 30 countries he was presenting.
Wow.
He's like, yeah, we decided to go into China because we felt like we needed to diversify. Then we also went over into Germany. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, what?
I'm working on my one office, much less you're talking about just opening offices all over the world. So, I think you're right. We don't have that one large enterprise. We got a lot of nice, good size, flexible, middle tier, solid businesses that are really continuing to develop and expand.
I just saw an article in the Business Journal, something like 30 of the Bay's 200 largest companies are new companies to the area. So that's another factor. You have a lot of mid-tier businesses, 20, 50 employees moving here. That's another huge prop up of our economy.
But again, that's the interesting part about that is that the nice thing about that size companies, you tend to be more malleable, more flexible. Those are the type of companies that can kind of work through a recession a bit better because they're not so top heavy, or they're I call it the nut. Your monthly nut isn't so large that it's unmanageable.
Right.
So you can actually weather some of those up and downs a little bit better than
So. And there's a growth component too. A lot of those companies look to grow, and I think if a lot of the businesses are looking to grow, then you have a high growth area. What are some of your favorite projects? We've got your website pulled up. You guys have done a lot of work
That's an
around
interesting
town.
one. Yeah.
You did the Piney Woods office.
We did.
Platte.
We did the Piney Woods.
That's a gorgeous building. I love that one.
That's an interesting one because so many people came and commented to us when we had a small sign up, and they'd be like, "Wow, I've been watching that. Every time I drive into the office, I watch it." And that was Brian was a great client where he really was open to the community. That one was designed and for the fact that the conference room on that second floor that you see, it's angled towards the street because one of the concepts behind that is fiscal transparency. If you work with us and you want to share your money, you trust us, that one right there. You trust us to be forthright with your money. We're going to show you the most critical space in the heart of the company, which is the conference room.
Yeah.
So that conference room is angled towards the road. So it's like you're looking into the heart of it, saying we are transparent. You can trust us because we're going to show you what's going on inside. We're not hiding. We're not hiding in the back room. We're not slamming behind a vault. We're exposing ourselves and saying, look at us. Look at who we are. we're going to tell you who we are. And so the building, which is kind of the fun process when the client says, I want you to make a building that talks about who we are. Like, we are about, transparency. We want everyone to see inside, to see who we are. We're not hiding. We want to be part of the community. We want you to see us work. So you're actually seeing them work. Finances, your money is at work, and you're watching people. And that was one of the concepts behind it. Even when you come in, it's a glass stair when you go inside. I don't know if you've been inside the building. There's the stairway going upstairs. There are glass treads, and you're looking at below. There's a beautiful image might be in there, but so at the bottom of those stairs, there's this rock garden of black rock. We have it on our website, and it's about the foundation being this rock solid foundation, but you can see through the levels of transparency. I think you have to go up to projects, and then I'll go portfolio. There you go, portfolio. Then I go commercial. Find Piney Woods. There's our building. I'm still getting used to the new website. There, it's right there.
Looks beautiful. Look at that.
So then go, one image over.
Is that
so there you go, right there. Perfect.
Look at that. Yeah,
so see how
really cool.
So that's actually a glass stair. Every tread is glass, but you look through it and you see the rock at the ground of it. And it's about the strength of the foundation, that you have to have a strong foundation, and then the transparency that we're going to show you who we are. We're not going to hide from you. We're going to let you see the innards of the company to ensure that you can trust us with your finances.
Is this something the client comes to you and expresses, and then you create it?
Right. So then we say, well, what if we took what's the most sacred space? It's a conference room where we're talking about the big ideas. We're meeting with the clients. What if we turned to that and angled it to the street and made it this big, beautiful, glowing kind of element that people pass it, they're seeing you physically do things, and there's a sense of vision. I can see where my dollars are at work. I can see what you're doing versus hidden behind, that stereotypical big door I'm locked behind. You're not going to see what we're doing with our money. So he came to us. He said, "This is important. I'm developing my brand. I want you to help me." And that's the entry. Again, it's about looking through there, seeing.
Yeah.
Right. All the offices have glass on them. I mean, again, that was. So the fun part is when a client comes to you, and that's like the backside. You're looking at through the glass, looking at the road coming in. So it's nice when a client comes to you and gives you the idea and says, "This is what I want," and then part of our job is to take what they're thinking, and kind of turn it into something physical that matches their concept of their business or their restaurant. We do a lot with restaurants. You'd mentioned American Social.
Yep.
They had never done anything that scale, that different. They wanted to step their brand up. That was important for them to take their brand to a new level. And you said you've been to the Brickle. I mean, what's here in Tampa. It does not match anything else. It's a different level, and they stepped themselves up to that level. Another brand we took is the Ford's Garage brand. We're taking that throughout the country right now.
Oh, wow.
We're doing one in Long Island. We finished one in Detroit, Novi. If you're familiar with Novi, we did, and that's a brand that's actually connected with Ford Motor Company. We legitimately are taking that. I think we're going to be doing 12 to 20 per year with sites from North Carolina, Tennessee, New York. Definitely, let's just say East Coast. And I wouldn't doubt in any way we're going to go, West Coast and keep the brand
American
going.
Social. Is that kind of how you mentioned before about like Legos, right? And how there's a manual to Legos. Is that how you work countrywide? Because you have that manual, you can give it to any GC. And then they can build your project.
Creating a prototype brand is a really interesting one, because we helped Ford's Garage develop their brand. We did the first one in Brandon. So there were 3 originals down south. And we took that brand and almost created a prototype book. And we actually have a couple prototypes with them, so that when we go to a new site, we're doing a bunch of these in Orlando, by the way. We have like 3 or 4 Fords in Orlando right now under construction. And we have 4 or 5 that are built already.
Wow.
But then we take that and you apply that book of information to a new site, and you figure out, how do I develop that? So
you guys have done Wright's Gourmets, renovation, Fresh Kitchen.
Did a bunch of those. Wright's was interesting because that's a brand that had been in Tampa forever.
Oh, yeah.
And Jeff Mount is one of the most intelligent and meticulous people I've ever met in my life. That is a man that can tell you every person's name that they stay in that kitchen, what they do, and what they need to be needed to. He's like, when we design, and here's the interesting part, we built that whole thing. We changed every square foot of that. All new electrical. We did everything. And we never closed. We never closed. There was, I believe, 6 phases in that construction. We would build a piece and then open it. So we had a plan of how to go from space to space and never close. He never didn't serve a sandwich.
Is that something the customer would come to you and you guys would go, okay, I guess we'll try to make that happen?
He said, I want to find a way to do this. I want to renovate all of it, and I don't want to close a day. I can't. People depend on me. I mean,
it's true.
He walks through that, like he'll walk through, so many times I've walked through that dining room, and people that have been going to him for 50 years would come to him and just start talking. He would remember their name. I'm not kidding you. He would remember their name, and he knows them. He said, but I will tell you, if I change a part of my recipe from my family that had done this before, I will literally not make it through this lobby without someone saying, you've changed the beef martini. You can't do that. I've been eating that sandwich in the 70s. It was so critical for him. This was such a big deal for him to go through this. He had trusted us with this, that to have a Tampa iconic business that represented kind of South Tampa sandwich. It's the deli in Tampa.
Right.
It is the deli in Tampa.
Legendary locally. And
he's like, I've got to make it feel new, but I can't gut it and change it so much that people will hate it. So it has to keep some of what was there, so that when people come in, they recognize it, but I also have to bring a new experience because I have to grow. I don't know if you've been there in the old days. You just line up the sidewalk. They would just line up the sidewalk all the way down the street. They're like, well, I need a lobby that's bigger, but I don't have any else square foot. That part that we did the addition for was parking lot. It was just a middle parking. So we filled in this square that was just about circulation and how the people would come in so you didn't have to line up out in the back street. And then all of it was about building pieces so we could renovate another piece and we're actually working with him right now in another phase that I can't disclose for him yet, but we're working on a growth plan for him right now.
How exciting.
Yeah. So
they deserve it.
We're hoping to launch that next year, but what a great business, what a great person. I mean, most of the projects that you see on a website like this is you can't have these type of projects without great clients. Clients that are willing to, one, trust you and ask for your professional opinion, and then, a lot of people think that when you work with an architect that they give you all the ideas. Absolutely not. Yeomans. I don't know if you can bring up Yeomans. Mark Brown, owner of 23 restaurants, and with his whole group of 23 restaurants, bought the Yeomans brand, which used to be, I don't know if you remember, it used to be over on the island. It was over on Harbor. It was like this little hole. And I say hole, I'm even being nice to the word hole. It was this little place, and people loved it. They loved the Yeomans brand. It was this really eclectic place. And all these different materials. It was just really wild. And he came to us and he said, I want to renovate it. And I went to that old space. It was over by like 717 over there. And I'm like, ooh, there's not a lot of space here. You want to do this and this and like there's a lot of space. And I ended up getting a call back for this space. And
where's this location?
So this is downtown. This is right downtown. I
know the downtown location, but where's this one with the Big Ben here?
So that one's Orlando.
Okay.
So
man, he's expanded. Wow. Orlando.
We have.
Look at that.
We have quite a few Yeomans.
God, that is so detailed.
That tower of Big Ben is considered 93% accurate.
Wow.
We got a laser scan. This is the next picture coming. It's a great picture. We had a.
Can you click that and hold on that one? Look at that thing.
It's 93. I know this because we had to deal with it. It's a foam extrusion that's laser cut because the whole building, Big Ben, was scanned. And then they carved every piece. I'm not kidding when I say you can see the pupils on the gargoyle's eyes if you get close enough to it. It's that accurate.
Amazing.
It is accurate. And it's obviously a scale difference. It's significantly smaller.
That's incredible.
But
now, is this something that you came to your client and said, hey, if you want the Big Ben, here's the idea?
So this was the first Yeomans we did outside of Tampa.
That close up. There's a close up picture of the Big Ben.
Yeah. So interesting story. We had already had this building developed. We did 3 buildings on this. We did Yeomans, then we did a Ford's Garage. We actually did the whole main circle of this development. And we're currently working again on that development with the developer. But we started developing the building, and you're like, what if we put a tower on this? I was like, what are you talking about? We were in permitting. Like, we already had the building done. And he goes, I'd like to do something iconic because there's nothing out there that's really tall. And when you pull in, and there's this expression on the backside, it's just all flat. What if we built something tall? I said, how tall are you talking about? What's tall? I don't know, 40 feet. I said, well, the building's already like 25 feet tall. You're only talking about like 15 feet. Yeah, no problem. We can do it. Then we start doing it. And I remember meeting with Mark, and I'm like, we built like the first square. And I'm like, yeah, this is about 40, 45 feet here. He goes, can we do another one? I'm like, you mean like a whole nother? Yeah. Ooh, maybe. And he goes, all right, well, how tall can we go? I said, well, how tall you want to go? I think the tallest part of that's almost like 82 feet. I'm like, we can get up there, but it's going to be challenging. We have to bring in some steel. He's like, all right, show me what it look like. And like, I think like the peak up there, but it was completely an organic and so many, honestly, if you talk to teams that work on projects, very rarely is it, I'm here and I'm getting there. It's a path. We call it a process because it is a process. You start here and then, someone joins the meeting that says, have you thought of this? And then it slightly diverts. And then someone else comes and says, what about that? And it's like, oh, great idea. And it diverts. So very rarely, and I've done this for a while now. You can see I don't have a lot of hair in my head, but very rarely is it like A to I don't know, F. It's usually this zigzag organic process because it's a collaborative process. The IT comes guy and says something like, oh, wow, what if we expose that? And you could see the conduit running through space. So every person and every part of the client that works on one of these design projects that's unique like this, they're a major designer on the project. That's what a lot of people don't realize. They're like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to meet with an architect. They're going to tell me what it is. No. Part of our job is to sit with you, to get your ideas out. And you are as much a part of the design process as we are. We tend to be more of a conduit because we're going to ask you questions that bring things out. Because, it's the same thing. You know a little bit about construction. So our job is to say, well, we can do this. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Well, we can do that for you if you want to. Oh, wow. I don't know. So part of our job is to open your eyes to new ideas. And then it really is a collaborative process. With Mark, with the first Yeomans in downtown, we sat with him and Tara Matheny, who's actually working for Franklin Development up here. And they literally gave us about 100 ideas. I'm not joking. Like 100, like they had found all these amazing ideas. And they gave us like a table full of these wonderful ideas. Like, okay, wow, we can't use all those. We're going to find a way to take like 10 to 12 of the best of yours and try to merge them together. Because if you go in the downtown one, it's like sensory overload. Okay, yeah. Then there's the murals, and I'm telling you, that's only like 8% of the ideas that we met with them about. If you can imagine what it would have been like if we'd use all of them, right? So our job was to filter, like, okay, that would work with this. And let's put those two together. And then, oh, you want to make a floor that looks like old-fashioned London as we're walking through. Okay, well, let's do that here. The room in the back, I don't know if you've been in the rack, the whole room is one big light fixture. It's a Union Jack upside-down light fixture chandelier. There's an image in there. It's an amazing space. It's a private room. We said, well, we have a Union Jack on the back wall. What if we made the whole ceiling one big light fixture with like Edison bulbs and it's like a big Union Jack? Oh, that's cool. Can we do that? Sure, we can do it. And it's all these. It evolves. It's never this one-time static element. The design process is so collaborative that we could have someone walk into the room, throw an idea on the table, and wow, the whole project changed. Like so that's the fun part for us is that
What are your most fun projects? What do you enjoy the most about this company? It seems to me like you guys do more creative architecture versus build me a Wendy's. I'm sure you do that too.
We have, funny enough, we've been approached by those groups.
Yeah.
And we've chosen not to go down that road.
Really?
We really like, I think one of the things that our company, SOL Design, has done well is work with either the brands that are growing or the new ones that need help to help them with a direction. We helped Fords grow to we're in, I think, 10 states right now.
Amazing.
But we also have smaller brands. It's their first one. And we can help them set up their processes so that they can grow. We started with Fresh Kitchen. We kind of helped Fresh Kitchen get going. We've worked with So Fresh before. We've worked with other brands that have grown beyond their current places to help them open their eyes to how you can develop things and move forward. So I would say that I don't know if I've never really had a favorite project, but working with the clients that are just willing to listen and be part of the process versus just want to sit down, tell you what to do, and then walk away. We love the collaboration when we can really dig into like, what are you thinking? And it's the psychology of the project. We talked a little bit about the project we're working on that I think you'll probably put up, which is great, which is in New Jersey. It's one of my, I'd say, favorite projects right now because of it's just so unique is the barns at Great Gorge. So we have a developer we've done multiple hotels with throughout the world. We've done a hotel with them in Puerto Rico. It's on the website. We've worked on New Jersey. He actually is the owner of Action Park, which there's a whole documentary on,
which is quite entertaining.
So I'm very familiar with that history on there. But this is a project where they had this site, and there's a hotel that, by the way, the old Playboy Hotel is right up the street.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of history there, and they have a hotel, 3 mountains with skis. They have a water park. They have an action park, and they had this property, and there it is right there. And this is one of those properties that they came to us with this wonderful program, which is we want to build a venue on this site. We want to be able to have, there's a need for weddings, but there's also a need for small concerts. There's these wonderful cideries. There's all these things that can happen. So in that complex, we have a brewery and a distillery with a tasting room that's kind of in the middle, and both sides you can sit in one tasting room and watch, either a whiskey or a gin being made on one side, and on the other side, you're watching beer being made. And that's that upper building. And then in the middle, tying all these other buildings together, there's this courtyard for wedding venues, sitting outdoors, and it's amazing. This site has mountain ranges on both sides. You are pinned in between 2 mountain ranges. So this gorgeous panoramic view.
Amazing.
It then has a restaurant that's going to have a world-class chef that then is going to be you're going to be able to go there and then take classes from that chef on how to cook certain things. Well, you're going to gather your own vegetables from the farmland that's around our own farmland. So pick your own vegetables that you'll learn to cook. But if you want to, you can stay in these little cabanas, so you can actually take a weekend retreat to learn how to cook, go hiking, go skiing, do whatever you want to at the action park, then still stay on the complex in these energy-efficient off-grid housing units while I'm learning to cook, farming my own vegetables, learning how to farm, by the way. I can go home and learn how to grow my own tomatoes and all the other vegetables, and have this wonderful experience. And then you can rent the whole complex out for one wedding as well. We have multiple wedding venues. So it's this really dynamic. By the way, it will be sustainable. It's going to try to sustain itself on its own power. We've already brought in a sustainable consultant, so we're going to try to use underground harvesting of power. We're going to try to tap our own water and use cistern systems.
Geothermal power?
Geothermal cooling as well. So you're using the cold temperatures to kind of take the heat out of the condensers and things. So this is a complex that's already brought on sustainability people to start to help us through that process. Using your own food. So now you're cutting out all the transport of the vegetables. So all those trucks that would normally be driving to drop off produce, no, we're going to grow it on our own site because we have our own farmland. So this was an interesting project because it really pushed us to say, it's a very modern project, but it's also something that's cutting edge technology, but also has to fit in this aesthetic, which is, you can see it right here. Go down one more. There you go. So you can see the tasting rooms in the middle with this bar, and you can see the working breweries on the left and distilleries on the right. Then you've got this multiple event space in the middle that, I know that you're probably going to put it up, but I recommend everyone touch on the QR codes for it because you really get a sense for feeling the space. Event building to host multiple kinds of events or wedding venues, and then you've got your restaurant, and then that's the show kitchen where you can actually take classes and cook because you just had an amazing meal. You want to learn how to cook that meal. So you can sign up, and then you stay right off campus, and you can walk to the classes each day that you take different classes, or go have a beer, or chill out, and hang out, or it can host a wedding party for the entire wedding. That can rent out the entire site.
It seems like what the projects you guys are doing are extremely detailed. I mean, look at American Social, and some of these restaurants are unbelievably detailed. Do you have to control your general contractors? Do you say, hey, client, we have to use this GC? They've done these very detailed jobs before.
The GC is a critical part.
Yeah.
They're a partner in the project throughout. I'll tell you, most of the projects you'll see on any website, chances are you had a really good partnership between the client, the architect, and I'll say the whole design team. It's not just the architect. We get a lot of praise. We're like the quarterback. You get way too much praise on a win and too much negative on a loss. Without the good engineering team, you're going to fail. Without a good civil engineer, you're going to fail. So you have to have a solid team. And yeah, absolutely. The contractor is critical. That's kind of what the units will look like. But the contractor is critical to making these projects work.
Oh, yeah.
You can't have that contractor says, well, I've always done it this way. I'm going to do it this way.
Right.
No, it becomes a conversation. It becomes a collaboration. It becomes a symbiotic relationship where they're not trying to do it cheaply and do it quickly. They're doing it the way that you want it done. And you're in the same way trying to find ways for them to do it efficiently and quickly. So the worst thing they can be on is on the construction site for too long. They want to get in, do their job, get paid, and get out. If it takes too long, they're hurting as well.
Right.
They don't want to do that. So I will tell you, for most of the projects, if you see something that's either won a design award or it's been publicized, chances are it's got a great team of 3. And again, it's not just a general contractor. It's got to have an owner that's willing to collaborate and to work as a team. Because if not, it's,
someone has to have that vision and kind of bring everything together.
Absolutely, because it's too tough a process. Construction is difficult. It's messy. It's hard.
Well, and like you said, especially here in Florida, there's extensive
codes. We're one of the few places, and California has to deal with everything that moves. It has to deal with seismic. Florida has to deal with the opposite. We talked about this off air. Is that we're one of the few states that actually has to, instead of gravity, deal with gravity. We got to deal with buildings flying away.
Right. Yeah, we've got our bad storms.
We've got our bad storm season. So,
do you guys work with residential projects at all?
We do some. We're actually doing one here in Ybor City.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we actually just got approved from the barrio, what I would consider a modern evolution of a bungalow, and they love it. And it's going to be close to
barrio. What is barrio?
Barrio Latino. It's the historic. So there's the ARC, which is the Architectural Review Commission. That's the city, but then Ybor City has its own historic guidelines, and it's a separate board, by the way. It's called the Barrio Latino, and it has to review every project within Ybor City.
Wow!
So it's a historic within a historic division.
So you have these 2 boards to get past.
So really, you only have to deal with one, because the ARC deals with the entire city that's historic, but then the barrio is within that one, but it only is Ybor City. It only handles Ybor, and it's very detailed. You have to pick every detail, every possible material on the facade. I'd love to take you to it, because it's going to look like a bungalow. It's going to look and fit within the district, but it's built all with the ICF block.
Okay.
It's all ICF. But you will never know it. You would not know that this house is
it'll look like an old historic.
It will look like a historic bungalow. Well, I would say let's call it a modern bungalow. The way we sold it to when we presented it is like, we're keeping the essence of what is a bungalow, but we're bringing the modernity to it.
Is this a development you are doing yourself?
We're building this home about 3 blocks from our office.
Oh, amazing.
It's under construction right now. They're actually pouring foundations on Monday.
And this is not for a client. You guys are
This is a client. No, this is a client.
Amazing.
It's actually a doctor couple, the Edwins, and they've been wonderful. They're, we worked with Tesla for the roof panels. We worked with ICF, Fox Blocks to make the Fox Block. The product that we're using, and we can show you in their office, but it's a ICF. And you pour concrete inside of it. And it literally, when you're done with this, it's like you're living inside of a Yeti cooler. You could turn the thermostat off, leave, and you could probably feel the same temperature when you come back. It's that well insulated. And it's rated up to 220 miles per hour.
Is it incredibly expensive beyond?
No, it's not that no, it's not. You would say it's double the price. No, it might be 5% more, maybe 10% more. And, it's always funny when I see people like, oh, masonry is really strong. No. Masonry is not strong. You see people with karate guys put their fists through it all the time. It's not strong. Yeah. Technically, in some respects, wood's stronger. What makes masonry block strong is when you pour the core.
Right.
Okay, that's what makes it strong. You put a piece of rebar and you pour the core. Most masonry, the standard spec for masonry is you pour 1 core, which is about a 3.5 by 3.5 inch square, every 4 foot on center.
Yeah.
So think about that. Yes, that's strong right there, but that's not. In theory, you could probably put your fist through that because it's a hollow shell. Mm-hmm. But it's what ties it all together that makes it strong. These ICF systems, it's foam, and then you pour a continuous layer of concrete. It's a concrete wall.
It's like a fortress.
It's a fortress. It's real. So to say it's stronger, it's exponentially stronger.
Wow.
Highly more insulated.
More energy efficient.
Less waste.
Plus the Tesla roof. I mean, this thing's going to be amazing.
Yeah. So this is going to be, and the owners were so amazing. There's actually a program that if you generate extra power, you can actually donate that to charities.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this house, when we first worked with Tesla, we were going to only use something, and it's changing now because working with different like solar systems. But when we had developed that roof, I think when they did initial calculations, we're only going to use 20% of the power you're going to generate. We could have donated. The clients wanted to donate all the extra power they were going to generate from the house to charity.
Don't give it to Tika. Those guys, energy bills are
crazy. Right now, it's crazy right now. You brought that.
Well, listen, Carlos, this was awesome. I appreciate you coming down here.
Yeah, glad to help.
Tell people kind of where they can find your company and social media, website, all that.
Yep. SOL Design Studio is www.sol-designstudio.com. That's our website right there. Thank you very much. We're right here in the heart of Ybor City, right upstairs from you, by the way, right across the street from, let's say, the Italian Club, and upstairs from Coyote Ugly. We love working with clients. We love working with people and educating them on the process and hopefully making it as smooth a process as possible.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you, sir. Bye,
Pleasure.
everybody.